welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing week 40 in my 2018 Project Life album. I'm also using the Little Things kit from the Reset Girl. This is the October kit from the Reset Girl, and I know that the November kit just came out, so it's definitely time for me to get this used up. And I bought the entire kit, the whole kit bundle, for the October kit because it is just gorgeous. It's lovely. I'm so excited to use it. And since this is the first week in October that I'll be documenting, I thought it would be a good fit for that. If you're not familiar with the Reset Girl, I will definitely link everything down below. It's a digital shop. Everything is downloadable, printable. And I just fussy cut everything. You can see some of the goodies that I have here. I do have a silhouette, but I hardly ever use it for this sort of thing just because I enjoy fussy cutting, and I do have some punches that I used for some of these things, but mostly it was fussy cut by hand. You can see I have my photos here, and I do have a few more photos this week, so we'll see if I can get them all to fit in this spread. And then I do have some of the 3x4 cards that are part of this kit as well. So this is part of my Project Life Catch-Up Challenge. So this will be shared with the rest of those videos. And I am nearly caught up, week 40. I think this is currently week 44, so only a few more weeks to get caught up on. And it feels so good to be almost there. Okay, so enough talking. I'm gonna put you on fast forward and get started. So as always, I'm going to start by laying my photos down on the page where I think I might want them. And I'm looking at the dates on the back just to try and get everything in chronological order just to start. And then I'll end up moving things around so that the page looks balanced and the color is spread out across the entire spread. Now I'm going to go through these 3x4 cards, and there are some filler cards and lots of journaling cards. And I'm just kind of pulling out the ones that really stand out to me, the ones that I really love, and starting there, and separating out the filler cards because I don't think I will need them at this point. And then just trying to make sure I have colors that work together as well. And I play with these for quite a while just because there are so many in this collection that I really love. And I'm trying to add as many of the colors as I can onto the spread without it looking too crazy or busy. So I try this blue plaid, and that's kind of where I decide that I think I'm going to steer away from the blues in this collection for this particular layout. There's lots of blue things and they're really gorgeous, but it was starting to just look a little too busy for me. So I figured if I narrowed the color palette down to the warm tones that are in this collection, then that might help make it feel a little less crazy to my eye. So I like that so far. I think I'm going to stick with that. I decided to use that Celebrate Fall filler card for my title card, and I'll just put my week and week numbers below that. And then I really wanted to add these adorable little acorn journaling spots. They all say Little Things at the top of them, but they were just too big. I couldn't make them work on my photos. So I'm going to save those for another project. And instead, I'm going to use these little labels. And I'm looking through for, again, ones that aren't blue and ones that have leaves or some bit of nature as the icon. Some of them had like a planner or a coffee cup or something like that, and I wanted to stick with the ones that were kind of nature themed. And now I'm just looking through the other little bits to try and come up with some little clusters for each of these photos. You can see I'm fairly indecisive here, and it's because I just love everything that's in this collection and I want to include all the things, but of course that's not going to work. So I'm trying my hardest to narrow it down and only use things that really make sense on the spread. So this was some of the larger ephemera that came in the collection, and it ends up being just too big for what I have on the spread so far, so I don't end up grabbing any of that just yet. And then I found this little hexagon that said the Little Things, and I thought that would be perfect to add to the top. There was a little blue pumpkin, but again, I'm trying to steer away from the blues, so I thought that would be a good thing to use to cover that, and it worked pretty well with that photo of my cat sleeping. So there were also these little circles, and I'm going to spread those around the spread as well. I'm going to add one to each of the little clusters. You can see I'm starting to build little embellishment clusters for each photo, and I'm trying to include some of the same elements in each one. So it's kind of adds repetition across the page. So I found one that I think will work, and now I realize I need to go back and add some of these little flags to a couple of the photos that I didn't have any for. So I'm going to see which one will work the best for this photo, and I find that one with the book print, which echoes the book print in the top middle journal card, so I really like that. So I add that to that photo, and then I'm going to look through these smaller flags as well to see if there's any that will work on the spread. You can see there's so much in this collection. I don't even have all of it. I don't even have all of it cut out. There's that whole page to the left there that I haven't even fussy cut yet, and there's more behind there, and you'll see I'll flip through that just to make sure there's nothing that just absolutely has to go on the spread. But for now I'm just sticking with the ones that I've already cut because there's plenty here to choose from. So I find a few of these little banners that I think will work at the top of the title card, just to create a little banner, I guess, at the top of that card to add some more color. And then there are these tiny little hexagons as well, and I'm going to look through those to see what's there and to see if any of them will work on my spread. And I don't believe I add any of them now, but I will come back to them later. So here I'm going to flip through the rest of the printables that I haven't cut out yet. And this isn't even everything in the collection. I didn't print everything. I just printed things that I thought I might use right away. So there's even more than what's here on my desk right now. So I think I'm finally ready to start narrowing things down and working on the individual cards. So I'm going to start with the title card, and I really like that banner. So I'm going to start with that, and it was just a little bit too wide to fit across the top of the card. So I'm going to trim down a few of them just a little bit, just so it'll fit better across that 3-inch card. And I thought about just doing a little banner in the corner, but I really liked the way that it looked going across the entire card, so I'm going to stick with that. And I'm going to adhere them down with just a tiny bit of adhesive, and then I'll end up stitching those. But first I'm going to look for an alpha because I need to spell out my week, and I've sped this up a little bit because it did take me a bit to search through all of these little alphas. I have all of them in a separate little pile from my thickers, and I knew there were no thickers were going to fit on this card, so I needed something smaller. So I'm just looking through what I have, and I pulled out a few options. There is this old kind of maroon colored one from A Beautiful Mess, and these two smaller alphas from Studio Calico, but they didn't have numbers, so I'm going to pass on those and decide between this Heidi Swapp glitter one and the Beautiful Mess one. And I really love the Heidi Swapp one, but the kind of dark maroon color on these little alphas is just perfect for this collection. It matches so well, and the letters and numbers are in a pink. So I thought I couldn't pass up the opportunity to use it on something that it matched so well with. So that's what I'm going to do, and I just spelled out week 40. And then I realized I'm going to need a label to stamp my dates on, so I just kind of look through and see if there's anything, but all of these are too big, so I'm just going to put the numbers down and then grab one of the smaller labels from the other little bin that I have there. And I thought about the yellow one, but then I see in the bottom there was a little pink one, and I thought that's perfect. That'll bring out the pink in the rest of the spread and in the alphas as well. So I'm going to end up using that. And now I think I'm finally ready to adhere everything down. I was just making room since I know I'm going to pull out my sewing machine here in a minute. I'm trying to add just the smallest amount of adhesive to these cards just to get them to stay in place while I'm stitching. If you add too much adhesive, it tends to kind of gum up your needle, and then the thread doesn't pull through. It kind of gets stuck, and it'll kind of come unthreaded, I guess, or not really sew like it's supposed to. I don't know any other technical way to say it. It just doesn't work anymore if you get too much adhesive on your needle, and I've definitely learned that the hard way. So I try and keep the adhesive kind of below where I think I'm going to stitch, and try and use as little as possible. And I will say I think this adhesive is harder on my machine than some others, so add that to the list of reasons I won't buy this adhesive anymore. So there I just stitched a single little line of stitching down the top of those, and I am gonna add my dates and then call the title card done. So the dates aren't going to fit completely across that label, so I'm going to have to ink up just part of my date stamp first, just to add the first day and the month, and then I'll add the last day and the month and the year behind that. So now I'm going to move on to this photo of my coffee, and I'm just going to play around with each of these little clusters to try and get them just right. I don't want them to take up too much of the photo. Of course, I want to be able to still see the subject of the photo, but I also really want to include all these pretty things. So I'm going to play around and try and get them, try and get a good balance of being able to see the elements as well as the photo. And I like the way that looks, so I'm going to adhere that down. And then I'm going to add that circle that says fall across the top of it. I thought about maybe covering up that leaf, but I certainly didn't want to do that. So I might, when I punched it out, I didn't punch it quite right. There was a little line of white across the top, and I didn't want to leave that, so I just trimmed that off. And now I'm going to adhere it right there, and you can still see that it's definitely a picture of coffee, but I was able to get all of those little elements on the image as well. I'm just going to add a couple lines of journaling. I'm basically just saying that this is not a PSL, it's not a pumpkin spice latte, because they're just way too sweet for me. I don't add syrups to my lattes. I like just coffee and milk, actually usually coconut milk, which at Starbucks is a little bit sweetened, but not terribly so. It's tolerable for me, but when I make them at home, I don't sweeten them at all. I use unsweetened coconut milk. So PSL, it's just way too sweet. I used to drink them, but definitely not anymore. My tastes have definitely changed. I've moved on to this other photo, which is not a great photo, and it's got raw meat in the back, but it was what we were doing that night, so I thought I would just include it. And I'm going to add, again, another little flag and a label and then another circle, and I'm writing about how what I'm drinking is a pineapple sage cider, and it's hardly fall-like. It's not. It's very summery, and it was left over from our vacation, but we were grilling out, and it seemed like a good time to finish them up. So I was enjoying them anyway, but it didn't feel very fall-like that day. So, and that's that one all done. So moving on to the next one, this is, again, not a great picture, which is why I printed it in black and white. It was very busy, but one of my dogs had pulled all of the dog food and cat food cans out of the recycling. She'd gotten into the recycling bin and pulled all of them out and put them on the bed, and was apparently enjoying the last little bits of food that were left in them. So she got in trouble a bit for that. But I also thought it was pretty hilarious that there was like 6 cans just all around her bed. So I took a picture of it and decided to include it just because it's a funny memory, and even the not so great parts can be fun to remember as well. So just writing the story there, and then moving on to a picture of another cider, go figure. This one was at a local bar that we went to celebrate. A friend of mine and a coworker got a new job and was moving on, and this was her last day, so we all went out to celebrate her new job and to kind of say goodbye to her, although I'm sure we'll see her lots. But so I'm just writing the story of why we were there and that we were saying goodbye to her. And just repeated the same elements there, and then that one's done as well. And for this one, there was a little kind of green wood grain print that was just like a little strip, but I just made it into a banner so that it matched the rest of the cards. And I'm going to add another banner just because that one is a bit smaller than the others, and I wanted to layer it up like I did that first photo, the coffee photo. So just looking for the right one. And I liked that kind of reddish maroon one, but I felt like it looked too Christmassy with the green wood grain. So I'm going to go with this kind of yellow one instead. And again, just layering them up just so to get it right on the photo and adhere it down. And again, this is not a great photo. This was when our dishwasher was being installed, which was an exciting moment for us since we have never had a dishwasher in this house before, and have been living without a kitchen sink even for a very long time. So definitely worth documenting. Definitely wanted to get it in the Project Life album, even though it was a very busy photo, which is again why I printed it in black and white. And not a great subject matter, but a kind of a prompt to tell the story behind it. So now I'm moving on to this top photo, and I really like that Little Things hexagon, so I'm going to go ahead and adhere that down. And you can tell that my photo was again too big, so I print them at home. I print them using Photoshop, and I do resize the photos so that they should fit on the card, but I've found that I have to trim down all of the photos that I print, and I've checked the settings on my printer a million times and in Photoshop, and I can't seem to figure out why it's printing the photos a bit bigger than I create them. So I do have to trim it down, which is fine. I lose the white border, but that doesn't bother me too much. Maybe someday I'll be able to figure out why it enlarges the photos when it prints, but so far, no luck. Obviously, I could just make them a bit smaller in Photoshop, but I haven't done that yet. So maybe one of these days I'll remember to do that. So I really wanted to include another little element on this card, but I couldn't find anything that worked. So I'm just going to leave it as is. And I don't really have a lot of journaling to add to the bottom of that card, so I'm just going to leave it sit for a minute and see if I can come up with something else to do in that blank space below the photo. And I'm moving on to another photo. So this is of some pumpkin yogurt, which is one of the few pumpkin things I enjoy this time of year, but I always look forward to it every year. It's one of my favorite breakfast items, I guess. And I really like this little banner that says "Love This," and it has an arrow, and it's the right colors. So I think I just need to trim it down to make it fit. But I play around with it a lot, and I'm not going to end up keeping it. I'm going to end up switching it out for something else. I just couldn't make the two sentiments work together. So there's that little circle that says "enjoy," and then the flag said "love this," and it was just too much on that little card. So I'm going to find something else instead, and I'm going to go with this darker kind of maroon toned wood grain flag, and then add another smaller green one. And I'm just playing around with how I want to layer them, and I like that, so I'm going to start adhering them down. So This bottom layer is going to go actually behind the photo, and then I'll adhere the photo, and then I'll add the other two on top. And that was when I realized, hey, this is pumpkin. I should totally add a little pumpkin hexagon. There are lots of pumpkins in this kit, so I was just looking for the perfect one to add, and I end up sticking with the one that I've already pulled out. Might as well use the pumpkin while I'm working on something that is actually pumpkin flavored. So I'm going to add the green flag there at the bottom, and then you won't end up seeing the floral that's on it. It's really just for the color and to add contrast behind these other two elements. And I'm just going to add pumpkin season to the side. That's going to serve as my journaling for this photo. So I'm nearly done now. I shut off the camera to go do my journaling, and I realized I had already added all of the journaling I had for this week. So I decided to switch out that middle journaling card for one of the filler cards, and this is a one that has a Winnie the Pooh quote on it. And I thought it was perfect, but it's a little bit too white. The rest of my embellishing is rather busy across the spread, so this definitely needed something as well. And I wanted to just add a few strips, but there weren't really any just plain papers or plain patterns that I thought would work. So I used that little label, and I just trimmed the top and bottom off, so I had that wood grain and then that kind of leaf print. And I'm going to use those at the bottom of the card, and then I'm just going to add a little cluster at the top like I have on the other cards. So I'm looking for a circle shape and a little hexagon shape that I can add. And I had thought about adding that kind of photorealistic tag at the top, but it just looked like too much on the card. So instead I'm going to end up using the matching little circle that is the same photo. It's that one right there. I'm going to end up using that at the top, and then a little hexagon next to it. And not that one, but that one. And then that's going to do it for this card. So I'm just going to adhere all of that down. And then I can trim off all the edges and call that one done. So while I was looking for a filler card, I also went through my stamps and found one that will work in at the bottom of that top photo. So this is a super old stamp from My Mind's Eye, and there's a little sentiment on it that says "so sweet" that fits perfectly in that little spot. So I'm going to pull out some inks and try and figure out a color that will work well. I have two in mind, and I'm just going to test them on a little piece of scratch paper to see which one works best with the colors in the spread. So there you can see I actually wrote the name of the stamp on this little card. I've recently changed the way I store my stamps, so I haven't finished organizing them yet. So I just stuck the little card that I had used in my previous organizing system in with the new one, which is what I used just to test the stamp on. And I had written all the names and manufacturers on the back of those. So I'll transfer those to labels that I add to the little Avery Elle pockets that I'm moving everything into eventually. But at least past Crystal was smart enough to remember to write all of that down at some point. So I decided to add more stitching to the spread, and I'm just showing you here. I added a little bit, I think, to every card on the spread. And my sewing machine was acting up quite a bit, so none of it is perfect. It's very messy stitching, but that's fine with me. I just wanted a little bit of texture, a little bit of something else. Everything was looking a little bit flat to me on the spread, so I thought adding just a bit of stitching here and there would add just the right amount of interest that I thought the spread needed. And that is the spread all done. There are some close-up photos coming up, and as always, if you did enjoy this, I do appreciate a thumbs up. It lets me know that you enjoy what I'm doing, and I really do appreciate the feedback. And be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. And thank you all so much for watching today. I will see you back here very soon. Have a lovely day.